Hey everybody, it's Taylor from Summerdale Soul here. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm working on my early model Mazda Miata. It's an NA generation with power windows here that have left me hanging. They don't work. I need to diagnose what's going on with them. Hopefully we can get them fixed today, and I'll show you the step-by-step process. For this project you'll need a 10mm, 14mm, apparently some pliers, a Phillips head and flathead screwdriver, and copious amounts of beer. Now, the previous owner of my car did not grace me with interior door handles, so first we'll start by prying open this door card. I was able to use a long flathead screwdriver for this, but be careful in leveraging your force as these pins are somewhat delicate. Follow along the panel and enjoy a party foul in right about, yep, there it is, spill the beer. Now, if you're like me at this point, you will weep for the loss of your beer and then just continue to follow that outside seam until everything is nice and loose. Now, I was overly cautious and decided to lower the window to ensure it didn't fall and smash into a million pieces, so I could lift the panel off and remove that from the door frame. Only cost me a beer! Make sure to pop off the corner lining as well for more room here. Now we can remove the, oh boy, the door lever using our Phillips head. This will allow us to peel that inner lining out. There are just a couple of easily visible screws, and before we go on to the next step, if you don't have gloves on like I don't here, I recommend it because it gets kinda gunky. Here's the part where you get to fight the monster from Fern Gully. Seriously, don't touch this stuff, it's gross, it takes forever to get off your hands. Just go ahead and lay this upside down so nothing gets in that, because we're gonna have to reuse that later. Just to make life a little easier, I like to screw the handle back in. It just kind of tucks everything out of the way. Next, we'll line up the window to show the 3 screws we'll need access to in order to actually remove the window. These are the screws you'll be playing peekaboo with, and as long as you can see them, you should be able to remove them as well. Once all 3 have been removed, you can pull the bracket down on the track and separate it from the window. Now, before we can pull out the window, we'll have to remove the 2 window stops at the top of the door with our 10mm. For organization's sake, I kept these screwed into their brackets just so I knew where everything went going forward. And now you can finally wiggle that window out. You can see here that the wheel that sits inside the rail was completely disintegrated. That was something I had to replace going forward in order to make that work, but it is just ancient. And at this point, I'm getting a little antsy between the camera work and repairs. After I decided I was done being murdered, my goal was to remove the top right bolt and the bottom right bolt for access to that inside rail. These are both 14mm bolts, and once removed will allow you to pull this rail right out. Oh, God. Moving on. While the rail is out, go ahead and remove any debris and gunk out before giving it a nice coating of grease. And don't be afraid to grease it up well, as this will help keep the speed of the window movement up nicely. Now unplug your window motor regulator, and from here I'll turn into a game show host before displaying the 10mm bolts we'll need to remove in order to get some extra wiggle room. Now we're starting to dig into the actual motor and begin the removal process with the ever-loved 10mm. Remove these 3 nuts that I've shown you here and the motor will be able to fall right out of place. But before we can remove the motor, we'll have to remove the 4 14mm nuts on the top and bottom parts of the door. Watch me struggle with this or fast forward. It's up to you. I promise I don't mind either way. Wow, back of your head, Taylor. Super helpful. Rip in peace to the cable of my window motor regulator. I'll pour one out for you. Oh wait, I already did! After realizing what a pain this process is going to be now that you know the wire is broken, you can start to fight the motor out of the door. This took some time to find the right angle, so be patient with it and make sure to pull it out from the side closest to you so it doesn't get tangled in the window bar that runs down inside. Not that it matters, because it's already broken. I would like to take a moment to appreciate the previous owner of this vehicle for installing radio speakers through those motor regulator wires. Without you, I would not be fighting this right now. But I have a video, so yay! If you have resistance clearing the wires, that means they are still connected by some plastic pins behind the door handle that you can easily pop out with those handy dandy fly-in pliers. Now you can remove the entire unit to see what level of carnage you're dealing with. Stop it, oh god, stop, you know, like 3 words. Now I'm fortunate in that the place I work has a lot of spare Miata parts around, so I was able to pull a good regulator cable out of a manual window door we weren't using and run the cable back into proper position. This is a process in and of itself, so in the interest of saving time, I'll just link a helpful video here if you don't want to spend $100 on a new unit. Now grease up those tracks again and get ready for reinstallation. I'm paranoid, so I wanted to make sure my rebuild worked and plugged it back in for a quick test. This is also good for greasing up the part of the track you clearly missed if you're me. Here you can see the orientation of the reinstallation position. I do recommend going back and pausing though, because evidently I am the Flash and I care nothing about my audience. Hi Mom. Notice how the wires cross over one another and clamp into place on the mechanism. From here, all you have to do is wrestle the motor back into place and fit the track back into its lower and upper mounting locations. I recommend fitting the motor into place first, as it is much easier to adjust that without tension on the cables. Now here I felt it was only right for you to be able to watch me struggle with this, because it's not going to go in the first few times. It's just infuriating. So bear with it. You can make it wiggle, it'll fall into place, or just fast forward this and save yourself more time. But when it inevitably does work, you can reinstall those nuts on that motor mount and you will have that locked back into place. Now you can awkwardly fumble the track back into position. Note that the tabs are facing away and just bolt those into place at the top and bottom side of the door. And in a very similar fashion to the last track we just installed, you can add the single bar back into place on the right side of the door. Just bolt on those nuts to the top and bottom half as well, and it is locked in. Now we'll retighten the bolts for the corner window. Just be aware of the fitment, as it will push the track back instead of threading if it's not in the proper spot. You definitely want to make sure it's seated. Here's a moment where I could tell it was just kind of spinning instead of actually threading, so I had to kind of go in there and make sure I had it propped up so it was actually catching the thread. Now scoot that door handle back out of the way and clear any plastic clips out of the way as well. Mine were broken on the other side from the previous owner, so I just zip tied some of my wires out of the way for clearance. It works, my windows still run. Do what you gotta do. Now plug back in your motor and align the gray window bracket so you have access to all three of those bolt locations through the door that I showed you earlier. I ended up having to replace that wheel on my window, but if you've made any adjustments to whatever hardware you have on there, you can carefully thread it back into place. Watch out for the plastic brackets interfering with the weather stripping on the side. You can see where mine kind of started to catch on the edge there. I had some trouble getting the window into position on the gray bracket we lined up earlier, but I quickly realized the plastic on the window was hitting the top of where it needed to line up. Push it away from you very gently and it will fall into place. Now all you have left to do to connect the window brackets and the track brackets is to screw those in. Now we can't have our freshly reinstalled window falling out on us, so what we'll have to do now is reinstall that window stopper on both sides. We've got to be sure not to set them too high or too low either. You should be able to see where they were previously set based on the fact that your car is filthy probably, or at least mine is, I'll speak for myself. If your car is like mine, you'll definitely see some grime around those bolt locations, hinting to where it was previously set. And of course the most obnoxious step is replacing this tar-sealed sheet. Just follow the outline of the door and be sure to just scrub your hands because it's going to get on you. Just accept it. We're coming up on the home stretch. Reinstall that door handle. Adjust that finicky rubber seal. And all you have left now is to pop your door card back into place. At least, if you're like me and the previous owner didn't leave you with door pulls, that is. Thanks. I don't know, but I'm not taking it out. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I hope this helped you out. There'll be plenty more videos where that came from. So much more to do on my car, so I'll be seeing you soon. And thanks again.